Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, welcome to this lecture, Act 228, Introduction to Design Computing. Today, we'll be looking at the evolution of design computing. We need to appreciate the fact that our world has been and is still being transformed by technology. And the architecture, engineering, and construction, that is the AEC industry, has not been left out of these transformations. And, we need to look at how we got here from an evolutionary perspective, how our tools has helped us to evolve, and how we reached this point in time. Now, over the last 3.5 million years or so, humans have created tools that in turn helped us to create our world. While those tools have made more and more things possible, they have also defined our aesthetics and limited our imagination. I want us to look at this, like I said earlier, from an evolutionary point of view. We go back in time to the hunter and gatherer age. And during that time, they just have stones and woods as part of their tools. And if you look carefully, those tools that they had in those days, it defined what they were able to do and how they were able to, prosecute the architectural challenges. And we need to also look at, just take a look at what we consider to be the end products of those tools they had then. You know, look at images like this. And look at this. Carefully, you will just appreciate the fact that what our forebears in those days were able to do was just based on the knowledge of the kind of tools they can use to build their house. Like if you look at what you're seeing on your screen, it's like an Adobe materials on a thatched roof. They were just basic materials that were available then, and they can easily maneuver these basic materials that were available to them in those days with just maybe their stones and their wood. So it's important for we to realize that those tools they had then somehow limited them. Then from that age, then I go to the next era beyond that time. Let's look at it with this image here now for us to be able to appreciate it better. Well, I must have to stay here that sorry. Okay. I'm not of the opinion that human beings evolved through the evolution like it was this theorized by Darwin. But I want to just use this to be able to explain some things to us. Looking at this image, judging from this man here now, he just had basic tools. Maybe what is holding in hand is maybe a knife or a stone tool. If you look at the next man behind him, what he just had here, maybe just a stick or a rod. And as men continue to progress, you can see that here now, they're already using different kinds of tools like T-square and Z-square here. And beyond that, they now got to the time that they started using computer. If you look at these images clearly, one thing is very, very clear, that each of these stages of human development, there were certain tools that were available to them, and those tools that were available to them limited on what they were able to do with them. So it's very, very important that we understand that. Look at this image that we have here. It shows a human being sitting on a drawing table and drawing. These are images that typifies the hunter and the gatherer age. Look at their tools and look at what they were able to do with it. Use a typical example of a man again, sitting on a drawing table with his equipment. Okay, sorry. Okay, this is an image again showing somebody that is on a table and a chair with a computer in front of him. One thing I want us to appreciate from these things that we are seeing here is this, that different time frames and different time frames and the tools that were available to them at each point in time, it helped them to actually use those tools to build their homes. And when you now look at, based on the tools that they had, the kind of homes that we were able to build, you now begin to understand what I'm trying to explain to us here. Let me just show us this this particular video that typifies everything that we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. You know, at the time that men started using paper, T-squares and Z-squares, it defined the kind of architecture they were making in those days. What you are looking at your screen now is this building that is called Villa Rotunda. I'm sure that we've been taught about Andrea Palladio, the Renaissance architecture. These are one of his buildings. And at the time this building was built, was designed and built, paper had been invented, and they have T-square and Z-square. And this is what they were able to do at that time. Now, I just wanted us to pick out is this. Just look at this and visualize the tools. T-square and Z-square. That was what they had in those days. And even when they started making tall buildings or skyscrapers, the end products of the design mainly has a lot to do with straight edges, straight corners, 90 degrees, and things like that. And why was it so? Whom I bother to ask. It was like that because of the tools that they had available to them at that time. Imagine people that were making this, and they were using T-square and Z-square. And that was why they were able to do things like this. Even when they had to make tall buildings, they had they were able to come up with straight lines, straight edges. Even when they attempt to use things like French curve and flexible curve, they were actually limited, because to be able to extract the construction information that is embedded in those things and then use it on a project is a little bit tasky. So I want us to look at another image here. Look at this now. You know what I want us to try and visualize by looking at these images? Just imagine that you're doing this with a T-square and a Z-square, French curve, flexible curve. Just imagine it. Just look at this with your T-square, your Z-square, your French curve, your flexible curve, your rapidograph, your tracing paper. You want to do stuff like this in a design. Just imagine it and visualize it. Look at this. Look at things like this. Now look at this. Remember, this was an image that I showed us earlier. Just look at this thing now. Look at what I want us to visualize as we're looking at this thing. Just look at what you are seeing on your screen and look at this image. Now, I want you to reason. What type of tools were the supposedly architects that were in this time and age, the people that did this, what kind of tools did they use to be able to come up with this design even before constructing it? Just look at it first. And then look at this. Look at these two different scenarios. I want you to reason what kind of tools has these people been able used to be able to come up with what you're seeing on your screen. So it's important that I want you to start reasoning to understand the differences between your tools as an architect and then the end product of what you have produced with those tools that are available to you. Remember, this course is the Introduction to Design Computing. We are moving away from using those tools like use stone, use wood as our tools in the course of our work. We've gradually moved away from using tools like T-square, Z-square, rapidograph paint, and all those things in our design. I know you might be wondering, what is this saying? Maybe we are still using T-square and Z-square in our design. Well, that's what we are using now, just to be able to lay a solid foundation for you as an architect. But as you progress, you need to realize that those tools are gradually becoming obsolete. And when you look at the kind of architecture that were created in those days when they were using stones and wood, and when they were using T-square and Z-square, they're not actually the same. Another thing I want us to look at is, we need to look at the design technology progression. I want you to seriously look at it. I want us to look at the design technology progression. Let's begin with what I want to show you now. If you look at this, and look at the associated time frame, from the 60s, when people are using hand drawing, going through 70s, in the 80s, in the 80s, around 1988 or thereabout, that this concept of CAD became something that is really used in practice. And as we went on beyond then, in the 90s, then getting to 2000 or thereabout, then that was when BIM came to be. And BIM came with a lot of capabilities that architects can now do their work using computer, and then so many other things. And that's when computer algorithm modeling came into play. And beyond that, during that time of using hand drawing and using CAD, what I mean CAD, like 2D drawings in CAD. I mean, using your AutoCAD or your ArchiCAD, anything to produce any drawings, that is called CAD. And during that time, it was called, that is the era of documentation. What do I mean by that? What it simply means that what architects do is that they have an idea in their head. They have what they want to achieve already in their head. So what they do is they use these computer tools as a substitute for their T-square, their Z-square, their flexible curve, their French curve, and the rest of them. They use it to be able to document this idea that they already have in their head. Now, beyond this particular era, we go to the era of optimization. That was when BIM came into the market. And when BIM came into the market, it became possible for architects to do some things. It became possible for them to be able to now model building elements. Remember, when you were drawing with your 2D card, what you are simply doing, listen and understand the differences between each of them. What you are simply doing is that you have an idea in your head, and now you use lines. You use lines to represent walls. You use lines to represent windows. You use lines to represent doors. You use lines to represent every single thing that you're going to do in your design. Lines are what you use to represent them. But when we moved from that realm, and now we're now in the era of optimization, what it means is that instead of now using lines to describe your walls, describe your windows, because you know what you are trying to do anytime you're drawing is that you're communicating. You are putting things down that somebody needs to interpret of what you have done. So in those days, what we do was using line to represent our building elements. But when we go to the area of optimization, that is the area of BIM, we're no longer using lines. We're now using the actual elements. Like you want to put walls now, you select walls, because there's a computer algorithm modeling that has been programmed that enable you to select that icon. And when you draw, you're not just drawing a line, you're drawing a wall. And as you are drawing that wall comes with the associated properties of that particular material. For example, now, if we are drawing a wall, maybe 150 wall, the properties of that wall, the load-bearing capacity, the fire rating if it's a door, or any of those properties that material has in real life, as you are putting it in your BIM, it means that it comes with those properties. I want you to understand that. Excuse me. Okay. Now look at this that you are seeing on the screen now. Just to be able to express a little bit on Now, looking at what we're seeing on our screen now, just looking at during that era of documentation, what architects simply do, they have an idea, they put it on paper. If you look at what you're looking on the screen, in those days, maybe they use cloths to draw on a cloth with ink and pen to draw on a cloth, and that cloth is what is folded, and that's what they call scrolls. That's how they do those scrolls you hear about in the Bible, and that's what they use in interpreting the design intent of the architect to build. Now, passing the area of optimization, we go to the era of connection. I want to explain this in detail, and I want you to learn that at this stage now, as you are embracing this concept, you need to understand these things that I'm talking about. In this current time, in this millennium, we are now in the era of connection. I mean, connection between data and materials, data and human beings. Okay, our time is running out, so I need to quickly, because once you join the meeting, make sure that you mute your mic. Now, we're now in the era of connection. Connection between computer and data, human beings, computer, all those things. You can see now, look at the way you're now having your lectures. Some of the things that are happening in our world today is like disrupting a lot of things. And I want us to understand that this era we are now in, I don't think we might have to go so back in time to what we used to do before. I'm not saying that there's not going to be one-on-one or face-to-face interaction in terms of in a classroom environment. But what it simply means that the world is moving. The world is moving, and as the world is moving, our tools are changing, and architects and professionals, we need to understand this and embrace it effectively. Now, if you look at the traditional way we work as architects, even from the time in the past, I want to use this now to be able to explain this in a little bit in details. During the hunter and the gatherer age, and during the era of human settlement, people are settling in communities, and when people now started having paper, having pen, T-square, set square, all those things that people use in their design, and even when they started using card, just understand one thing, and this is it. And this is it, that it involves one human being, maybe with that stone or that wood, or maybe with that T-square or that rapidograph on it, and one human being, and then the computer. Is that this is the tool now? Is that is a stone? Is that is a T-square? Is that is whatever kinds of tools you use in making architecture, or a computer? And what happens? You have your outputs. You have your outputs. So it's important that at this stage, we just have a working knowledge of how these the evolution of design communication. And for you to be able to have that working knowledge, you need to know how design technology has progressed, the progression. This slide just encapsulates what I was trying to explain to us before now. We will talk about the traditional process, that way we're just recording our decisions using either paper or using card, when I mean card, maybe AutoCAD or something like that. And then from that realm, we move to the era of parametric modeling. That is the era of optimization. That is when we now have associating geometry with data. When you have your walls, you have your windows, have all those things, the data that are associated with those things are already embedded in it, and they can be subjected to certain kinds of queries in terms of analysis to be able to determine how that will functions in real life. That's when I started using tools like Revit to do that. And beyond that, when I got to the point of design automation and computational modeling, this is when architects started having working knowledge of scripting, being able to use computer scripting to be able to generate your designs. And if you look at the works of Zaha Hadid, these are their secrets. They use these tools to be able to come up with the designs. And from that era, we got to the era of generative design. Generative design is where the world is today. As you progress, you will get to the point of understanding it and being able to apply it in your design. But it's important that you understand this progression and know where we are now. And you're able to ask yourself, where am I? Are you in today's world or are you in the past? Zoom is already asking me to stop. So I would like to field your questions now. And you can type it in the chat box so that I can address it. Wow. Well, this class is being recorded, so it will be uploaded with a link so that you can have access to it later. So well, somebody was asking which softwares are we going to be using this semester, but I would like you to understand that we're not going to limit ourselves with any particular software. But the most important thing that you need to understand this semester is that you need to start learning and understanding as an architect how to design in 3 dimensions. So the software that will help us to be able to do justice to that, I mean, designing in 3 dimensions, that is the ones that we're going to be using. But it's important that you, first of all, learn how to use SketchUp. SketchUp will be very, very useful to us. SketchUp, why I am proposing that we use it, because I know it will be relatively easier for you to learn now and use. But the most important thing is that we want to start learning how to design in 3D. I'm still waiting for your questions. Let me check. Well, in the absence of any other question, I will end the lectures now. But just keep checking the module because we'll be posting quiz and adding additional information on the module. So just know that we'll be meeting by this time again